You ready? Okay, so friends, I'm going to read to you today Ada's Violin, the story of the recycled orchestra of Paraguay. And it's written by Susan Hood and illustrated by Sally Wern-Comfort. And when I told you I was going to read you this book, some of you said, oh, I read that book. And that's really great that some of you know this story already, because we're going to be doing some thinking in this book that maybe you didn't do the first time when you heard this book. So as I read this book today, I want you to think about the setting, which is the time and place that a story happens. And I want you to think about how the setting has an impact on the characters and the plot. The plot is what happens in the story. And I'd also like you to pay attention to the illustrations. Even if you just look at the front cover, you might notice some neat things that the illustrator did, or even looking at the back cover. And it carries throughout the whole story. So think about those things as I'm reading to you Ada's Violin. Ada Rios grew up in a town made of trash. I can see you're thinking, Kaden, just by your face. Every morning at dawn, Ada heard the first garbage trucks rumble and roll down the road to Katura. Beep, beep, beep. Backing into the landfill, they tip their loads and up, and crash. The trash came tumbling down, 1,500 tons each day. Ada and her friends watched as the goncheros, recyclers, scrambled, tearing into plastic bags with long-handled hooks, pushing aside moldy produce and grabbing anything they could recycle or sell. The going rates? 5 cents for a pound of cardboard, 10 cents for a pound of plastic. When I first read these 2 or 3 pages, I'm noticing that the author uses really descriptive language and sound words, onomatopoeia, like beep, beep, beep. This helps us understand what's happening in the story better. Would you turn and talk about what you know so far? Think about that descriptive language. What do you know so far about the setting?
The author is like, she gives lots of details and she's like specific with whatever she's like saying. And also I could tell that it's getting, I would just say that it's gonna get polluted, like with too much trash.
I don't understand what polluted means.
Oh, polluted just means like when there's a lot of like trash on the ground or like things that
Yeah, I think she's not that rich, like,
yeah.
and I think
like kind of,
I think because the descriptive like sentences that she's like a lot of she grew up on a land that there's a lot of trash on the floor. I think that means that she's not that rich.
yeah, because there's not because I also think that there's not going to be a lot of things to find or go there.
Probably not country.
And it might be a lot.
And I also have wondered what food they get. Like, how do they get food, or how do they?
Okay, turn back. So I heard a couple of you talking a little bit about just that envisioning work that we've been doing too, where you could really hear, and the author helped us with that descriptive language, right? You could hear what was happening. Can anybody kind of get the smell? Yeah, I mean, the author didn't really talk about it yet, but that's what we do when we envision. We take the details, right? And we think about, what do we hear? What does it look like? Even in this book, what does it smell like? Nice job. This noisy, stinking, sweltering slum was not the most nurturing neighborhood. Ada watched, eyes wide, but she didn't say much. And yet she liked to imagine each garbage truck was, quote, a box of surprises. One never knew what might be inside. Her father had found appliances, toys, perfume, and antique watches. One woman even discovered a small box full of gold jewelry. Little did Ada know there was a bigger surprise waiting for her in the landfill. That line right there, little did Ada know there was a bigger surprise waiting for her in the landfill. That gets me thinking about what's going to happen next. The author's doing something here called foreshadowing. Is anybody else thinking about what's going to happen next? Anybody who hasn't read the book? Ahmed, you don't know this book, right? So what are you thinking? What's a prediction that you might have?
A prediction that she's probably gonna find something better, but not like as too expensive, but it makes her happier.
Yeah. So you think it's just gonna find something that makes her happy? What do you think, Kim?
I'm predicting kind of like Ahmed, like that she's gonna find something that she likes even more, and that might help her.
How might it help her?
Like maybe since in the beginning of the book it said that she lives in a world of trash, maybe if there's like a ton of trash on the ground, it might like help her be able to like help pick up all of that and reuse it.
What do you think?
I feel like when she's, I predict when she's at the place where there's a bunch of trash and stuff, that's where she finds the violin.
Right, because they were talking about how they look through and they find things. Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna read on a little. Every day when Ada's parents went to work, grandmother Miriam cared for Ada and her little sister Noelia. Grandma loved to sing rock and roll songs from the 1960s. The girls grew up to the tunes of the Beatles, Simon and Garfunkel, and Creedence Clearwater Revival. Yeah. Ada loved to sing too, but only when no one was listening. Ada's dad brightened the night with stories and songs of great musicians. He turned up the radio and pointed out the sounds each instrument made. Ada heard one above all. Zing went the strings of the violin. When the girls started school, Grandma returned to work as a recycler, collecting bottles and cans in the city. Class let out at noon. Young Ada was in charge of Noelia until her parents were done with work. At first, the girls stayed close to home, playing with Grandma Marion's doggies and making sand cakes in the dirt. Soon, they joined their cousins, playing hide and seek or a game of handball in the streets. In time, they ventured farther afield, walking down to the bodega to get candy. So a bodega is just like a little store,
Like
sometimes with an open front. Yeah, like a corner store, exactly. But Ada noticed the teenagers hanging out in the alleys, grumbling about life in the landfill. Looming ahead, what would happen to them? To her little sister. She watched as the older kids turned to gangs and got into fights. One day, when Ada was 11 years old, her grandmother saw a sign posted on the wall of a chapel. Violin, guitar, cello taught, Saturdays at 8 a.m. Fabio Chavez. How Grandma had longed to learn music. Too late for her, maybe, she thought, but not for her granddaughters. She signed them up without asking them or their parents. Ada's heart sang out. Thanks to her abuela, she could leave her worries behind and learn to play. At the first class, the teacher, Fabio Chavez, had 3 guitars and 2 violins to share. Ada chose a violin right away, but 10 children had signed up. Frustrated, Ada and her friends found that there were not enough instruments to go around. And there was a bigger problem. Everyone quickly realized that the children would need to practice at home, but it wasn't safe to be seen with an expensive instrument. In Catura, where a violin is worth more than a house. A violin is worth more than the whole house in the city where they live. Oh. So we're learning some more details about the setting, aren't we? Yeah. What are you thinking, Simeon?
Is this a true story?
This is a true story. Kaden?
I think people might try to steal it.
So you're thinking
That's why it's not safe to
That's right. It's not safe to have a violin. People would try to steal it. What are you thinking about the setting? So you're thinking about they live in a place where people steal things? What else? Peter?
I think like it's kind of both. So I think it's not safe to have a violin in the place where they live because it says they have a lot of trash, and by looking at the pictures, it doesn't look like a very like wealthy houses. So I think it might be a little poor.
Definitely poor, right? If the violin is worth more than the whole house, yeah, absolutely. Finn?
I think it's a dangerous place because they said they have like gangs that
Yeah,
goes
that's what I was
into
gonna
fights
say.
Yeah.
that could be breaking into houses.
Yes. Let me finish this page and then you're each going to talk. Watching the children play amid broken glass and rusty metal. You thinking more about the setting here? Senor Chavez knew he had to do something. He remembered a band called Les Luceres that made its own instruments. That was it! He asked Nicolas Cola Gomez, a gonchero and carpenter, for help.